Good day, everyone. It's Paul Lawrence Vann, and welcome to Leadership is Influence here on the YouTube channel. I'm glad that you could be with me today because I'm going to talk about something and share something with you that I know can help you. Of course, our central theme is all about leadership, and leadership is really all about getting other people to carry out a duty or mission, take care of a job and being able to get them to do it effectively to get the result that one wants. So that's primarily what I'll be talking about. But before we get started, for those of you who are not aware of who I am, I'll just give you just a short background and then we'll get into the different elements of effective leadership. Again, the name is Paul Lawrence Vann. I've been working since the age of 10. I was an unpaid intern in my family's grocery store. And that's where I cut my teeth, if you will, in terms of understanding leadership. And as you all know, my philosophy and mantra is that everyone is a leader, and you do not have to have the title to be a leader. That's the amazing thing. And I finished high school, the first of 10 children to graduate from high school. I went on to college, the first child in the family to graduate from college. And I also decided to go into the Air Force. I was an ROTC program for a 2-year program. I attended Shaw University in North Carolina, and then I went to North Carolina State, which crossed the road for Air Force ROTC. And the day I was commissioned, I received my bachelor's degree in business and accounting, and also I was commissioned a second lieutenant, served over 20 years in the United States Air Force. I also worked for Mobil Oil Company. I worked on Capitol Hill as a part of the Air Force as well. And once I retired, I went on and became an entrepreneur. And I started out with the speaking platform. Then I became an author, then a trainer, coach, radio show host, now podcaster and digital course creator. So let's get into some elements of effective leadership. Let's start out with one of the primary things that we all need to do as a leader, and that is to set goals. So goal setting is number one. And the reason why goal setting is number one, because we need a target, we need an objective, we need a purpose. And by setting goals, we're able to do that. For example, as I mentioned before, you may not have the title of a leader, but in your role as an employee, you also have a responsibility and duty. So you have to set goals for yourself, for your particular job, whatever it happens to be. Let's say, for example, you happen to be a marketer or you may be in sales. And you want to be able to set goals in terms of how you can not only meet those goals, but also to exceed them, because once you exceed them, it means your leadership skill is working just fine. And you will be identified in your corporation as a go-to person, a person you can count on to carry out the goals that you set. For example, I formerly worked at GTE Telecommunications, and I sold cell phones. I had a break in service, so while I was waiting to come back on duty, which ended up being 6 months, I took a job. And I took the job primarily because I wanted to stay active. I still knew that I would be contacted to return to the Air Force, and I was going to the Pentagon, so it gave me an opportunity to get out and work, and I sold cell phones. And then finally, I got to the point where I was selling phones and the service that goes with it, and I became the Employee of the Month. And I thought it was fun. And but when I sold these phones in my leadership capacity, I was selling them to then the team, the Washington Redskins, who are now the Washington Commanders. And it was the Washington Bullets, now the Washington Wizards. So I was selling a lot of phones and services to professional sports athletes. And I went to horse jumping, like the Gold Cup in Northern Virginia. And eventually I went on and I did some work with the Olympic Committee trying to bring the Olympics to the Washington, D.C. area for the 2012 games. And that year we came in third behind San Francisco and New York. And of course, ultimately, London, they end up receiving the bid, but it gave me a great opportunity for more leadership skills and leadership from the standpoint of I was a volunteer. And so when we look at a job position that we're in, we want to set high goals. And so my goal working on that Olympic committee, as a volunteer was to get as many people into the membership so people could purchase a membership to receive information on the Olympics were to come to Washington, D.C. or Baltimore, which were the areas for us. And so I was able to do that. So I got a chance to meet people at the Whitbread. That's the around the world sailboat competition that takes place. I was able to meet people from that space and also to actually go inside of one of those sailboats, which was really great. And so it's doing different things such as that, meeting the athletes, going to mini camp, had a chance to meet Jack Kent Cook, who was the owner at that time. And so with these different experiences, and again, setting goals, it breaks up that opportunity and brings up that opportunity to meet amazing people, amazing organizations. And so goal setting is one of the goals that one of the things you want to do in order to become an effective leader. And so I really want to impress upon you, no matter what job title you have, the title of leader or not, it's a leadership position, and that's the way you should address it. You should approach it from that standpoint. And it doesn't even become an issue, even talking to your supervisor or your manager about it. They will know through how you work. And that's really how things kind of work out anyway. So goal setting is one of the elements of being an effective leader. The second one is empathy. Now, empathy to me, when I think about that, is that you want to be in someone else's shoes. In other words, you have an employee or colleague, someone that's working for you or with you, and they're having a tough go of it. And everybody has a tough go in life every now and then. I have them, you have them, we're just human. And it's a part of the experience that we have in being a human. But when you're in a job position, it's good to know what people are going through. And don't just say, hey, toughen up, get the job done. I don't want to hear anything. It's more so, hey, let's talk about it. Go out and have some coffee, go for a walk, go outside and talk about it, because we never know what other people are going through. So empathy is a very effective leadership characteristic that you want to have, and a great element of effective leadership. And so when we know that people went through the pandemic, that was a time when a lot of people with empathy was the order of the day. And since the pandemic is behind us, almost 2.5 years, we also want to keep that in mind, because we do not know when the next situation that's affecting our health or any other aspect of our life is coming through. But to have that understanding, having that appreciation, having that respect for someone else, to not necessarily enter their space, but to become a part of it, and a solution-based part of it, where you could be a shoulder for someone to lean on, someone can listen to, they can talk to. And sometimes that's all people want. They just want someone to be able to listen to them. And when other people listen to them, they'll find out the person that's listening to them have had that same experience or are going through that same experience as well. So empathy plays a tremendous role in being an effective leader. And it's something that you should really, really hone in on. And again, you do not have to be in a leadership position, but if you have this element as far as being a leader, it will be very effective for you. So far we've gone over goal setting and empathy, and now we're going to talk about a very important aspect of effective leadership, and it's trust. Trust is everything. And the reason why trust is everything is because you want to be able to have a open door policy, if you will. And if you're a leader or you're an employee or a manager, you want to have an open door where people can trust you. They can come in. You don't necessarily have to talk about personal things, but you want people to be able to confide in you and talk about some issues. There may be a problem taking place on the team, and you want to say, hey, maybe if we can fix this aspect, maybe we can shore things up, we can increase our productivity to perform better services and or to produce more products. So having that trust opens up a window of opportunity, not only for the employee, but for the manager and the leader of the organization as well. And trust is everything, because if you have a someone that you work for and you can't trust them, your performance will not be good. It just does not work out that way because you just will not trust that individual and they're counting on you. So it would behoove the person in that leadership with the title position to be a person of trust, because trust goes a long way, a lot further than an individual alone, because it's not only trust for the employees or the managers and the leaders, but it's trust for the entire organization. So if you ask yourself at this very moment, in this very day that you're listening and reviewing this particular video, and you ask yourself, can I trust my leadership? Can I trust my manager? And when you answer that question, you will know. You will know. For example, I recall when I was working at UPS, and I was in college at this time, and I worked for them for 4 years to make ends meet as I was going through college, because of course, being one of 10 children, my parents didn't have any money to give me to go to college, so I had to work. And I'm glad that I did, because again, it gave me experience. So I could put that on the resume, because when I first started, I didn't know that I would even join ROTC, but I did 2 years after, in 2 years, after 2 years of college, I joined a 2-year program. And so I would have to trust that the people who were unloading the packages from one truck that would come to mine to go to another destination, that the proper box was in there. I had to trust them, because if it wasn't, and I had, let's say, 30 or 40 boxes that didn't belong in my truck, well, that's a lot of work and it's going to make the day longer. And the person who's actually loading the truck will also have a tough time of it, because they will repeatedly throw boxes out, and that slows down productivity. So we had to trust the plant manager at that time, or the hub manager, and then we had to trust who the driver was, who the unloader was. And then when I did the sorting of the packages, it would go to the person who loads the truck. Then the person who's going to actually drive the truck after that truck is fully loaded and sealed and confirmed. So trust works up and down the line, no matter what, and no matter what industry. In the airline industry, let's say I'm in the Air Force and I have a lot of friends who are fighter pilots, or some who are carriers that have people that they carry, cargo aircraft. When we look at these planes, responsibility and trust is all up and down the line. It's all about trust, because trust does, in fact, play into a person who's flying a plane, a multi-million-dollar jet in the instance of an F-16. And if you're not properly maintaining that aircraft with maintenance and the fueling, and then the pilot really studying and getting trained up on how to fly it, you can have a problem, type of problems that you do not want. And so trust plays a great role. Now, so far we've covered goal setting, we've covered empathy and trust. Now we're going to go into a very important aspect, accountability. Ooh, I can say a lot about accountability, and this is what I'm going to say. Accountability is everything. It really is, because when the rubber meets the road, it all comes down to, can this individual perform? And performance is another word for accountability. Can we count on this person to fly this jet properly? Can we count on this person to load this truck with the right destination, with the right items in it, products in it? Can we trust this particular person when you're competing in a sports event as a part of a team? Can we count on you to get 5 rebounds? Can we count on you to get 10 receptions? Can we count on you to throw 5 touchdowns or catch this many balls that almost hit out of the park? So accountability is everything. Can we count on you to study the safety regulations that pertain to this job? So there are a lot of elements of accountability, but most importantly is, will you show up to work on time? Will you create and be a part of a safe work environment where people get along, where people communicate with each other, where people don't degrade each other, that there's respect up and down the line. So accountability counts for everything. And being a former military officer, accountability as an officer when you're leading people, of course, you know it's everything, because you have to get your team working on a project. Let's say if we have a project where we're trying to select who the contractor is that's going to produce a product for the United States Air Force or for the Army, the Navy, Marines, then we have to have people who are certified to be able to determine who will we select to produce this multi-billion-dollar project. And I was working on a project out of California, and I had a team of 12 people working for me, contractors, and we had to determine whether or not this particular contractor could deliver a $3.3 billion contract. The product we needed, could they do it within the budget, within the schedule, that they have enough people lined up and hired to do the work? Would they be able to provide the analysis and provide us with the data that we needed to monitor them from the inception of the development of the project until the end user? In this particular case, it was for all services. And so accountability is everything. And the only way you can do that is you have to go out and you have to assess the ability of that contractor. So accountability is really everything. So now I'm going to talk about how to motivate and how to empower employees and people who are part of the leadership team. And this is one thing that a leader has to do. You have to motivate people. You don't have to go out and give a motivational speak. Of course, one of my favorite speakers of all time is Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar, and I met him and his wife at the very first National Speakers Association convention I ever attended. And one of the quotes that he has, which I love, is this one, is that you would get everything in life as long as you help someone else get everything that they need in life. In other words, it's a co-equal and it's a partnership between people. Let's say if you go out and you deliver, in his example, you go out and deliver a speech, that speech is to help everyone sitting in that audience. The fact of the matter is it might not, but people cannot come back and say, well, I was not inspired, I was not empowered, I was not motivated to do better. But once we take that excuse off the table, then you were. At least when I listened to him speak, I was. And so we want to be able to motivate people. And how do we motivate people? We get to the core of who the person is. We find out what their likes and dislikes are. We find out what moves a person. A lot of times what moves a person may be something after work. It may be that they like to go fishing, or it may be that they like to go shopping. It may be that they like to go traveling, but you find out what they love to do, the employee loves to do, or the manager or the leader, and you try to help them to get what they need. Because if you have a happy employees, you have a wonderful working environment. The workplace is happy, everybody's jovial. I've been in many organizations like that, and we received organizational excellence awards. And the reason why we did is because we did not just work on the job in the workplace together, but we had after work activities, whereas we may go out for dinner, we may go to a show, we may very well go out and we would have different training in different parts of the country. So when we were building relationships, because building relationships really is what success is all about. It's about building those relationships, and a part of that is motivation. We want to keep people motivated. We want to keep them inspired. It's like when they leave work that day, they cannot wait to get there the next day because they know they're going to enjoy themselves, and they should. No one should be working in a job where they're not happy with it. I'm not saying just happy, just laughing and just acting crazy. I'm just saying a great environment to come in. You can't wait to get there. You go to lunch together. You're working on your project, and the project is smooth sailing, and it's because of that motivation, that the leader is able to motivate people and push them to the next level of excellence. And I believe that that's very, very important. And so far we've covered goal setting, empathy, trust, accountability, motivation. And so now we're going to talk about team building. Team building is very important. I remember my first major team building project came up when I was in the United States Air Force. And part of that, we were in a program called Squadron Officers School. And so it was a leadership training program, but we had what's called Project X. So everyone in our group, and I believe there were about 15 of us total, and then we would have a squad leader. And that squad leader was not a part of our group, but he was providing oversight for our 6-week program. And so we had to solve it against maybe 20 or 30 other squadrons that happened to be at the encampment. And I'm telling you, it was really something else. We all had to put our thinking caps on and really try to figure out if we could be the first one to solve Project X. And we were very successful in solving it. I can't recall if we were the top organization to do it, but I know that we were very competitive in that process. But for team building exercises, it's some of those things where some people go out on a course, or it could be rock climbing, or it could be solving puzzles. It could be just a number of things, different games. And so it doesn't have to be serious. It just want to get people to think and work together, to understand the importance of, I can do better if you can do better. If I can help you to do better, we all can do better. So team building is very, very important. And again, I can recall the time that I was on the track team. I had never run track before. I had no clue what to do. All I know is I practiced before the very first meet. And part of our practice entailed running a mile. And every day I was the fastest one out of the entire track team to run a mile. And people asked me, well, why do you run so fast every day? I said, I want to hurry up and get it over and get to practice. So, because once we finished practice, and I ran about 5 minutes, sometimes under 5 minutes, just for the practice run, we'd have to sprint and sprint and sprint. And even though I ran an individual event, which was the half mile, and I anchored the mile relay team, it was still team because we had to garner points in order to beat the competition, a crosstown rival or another team that we competed against. And mind you, we did not have a track at my high school. They have it today, but they didn't have one when I was there. And so by the time we got to the competition, the competitors' track, we beat a lot of schools because we were just so happy to be running around a real track. And so running the half mile, I'd run around the track fast as I could 2 times, and then I'll get a little rest. And then it was time for the mile relay, and they put me on the anchor because it gave me more time to rest. And so it was a part of our team building, and it worked out just great. But it helped me to learn that to be a cog in the wheel, to be a part of something great, you have to make sacrifices. The mile relay team could not win unless I dig up a little bit extra. If I would dig up a little bit extra energy and a little bit extra dedication and determination and commitment to try to win that race, even if we were trailing, which we were sometimes. And so team building is everything. And that's what our coaches taught us. They really taught us how to overcome obstacles. And I take those same lessons that I learned in high school as a student athlete, and I took it to college. And after college, I took it to the United States Air Force. So team building is very critical and a very vital part of leadership. Now, if you want to be an effective leader, there's something else that I'm going to share with you, and it's called self-improvement. Self-improvement is all about, how do I get better? And how do I get better? And so in order to do that, I must be continuously trying to improve, trying to become the best me that I can be. I did post something on Facebook 2 days ago, and it said, no one is better than anybody else. Because I shared a story when I was with Mobil Oil Company, and I was at a ethics session, and one of the young men, one of my colleagues from another location out of New York, stated that he had never been south, he said. So he was up north, I guess is the way he termed this thing. And he said, oh, I'll never go down south, because he was basically saying, because he was from the north, and New York in particular, that they were better than the people in the south. And I told him, I said, well, that's faulty thinking. I said, because where you're from does not dictate whether you're better than someone else. And what he talked about, south, he lived in New York. He said the furthest south he had ever been was New Jersey. And I said, well, that's half the problem. You had never been anywhere. You know, if you go to some other places around the country, no matter what state it is, Alabama, Mississippi, you name it, Arkansas, Texas, you haven't seen good living until you went to some of these, you visited some of these places. New York is not the pinnacle. It's not the be all. So I just tell people that, again, it's all about self-improvement. My point is, with the story with the young man who stated that he felt that he was better than people in the South because he lived up north, was this: the only competition that you ever should have is with yourself. How do you become a better employee, a better person, unless you try to become better the next day and the day after that? You can't compare yourself to anyone else, because you can't control anyone else's life. And besides, you don't know whether you're better than somebody else, because it's not a competition. The only competition is with yourself. I'm pretty sure he can probably hear me saying this now, but it's the truth. And so I just stated that if a person thinks that they're better than somebody else, it means they have low self-esteem, because they're competing, they're trying to compare themselves to someone else, when the only person they should compare themselves with is themselves. Got it? And so that's a very important part, is self-improvement. If I am an engineer, how do I become a better engineer? If I'm a financial analyst, how do I become a better financial analyst? If I'm a pilot, how do I become a better pilot? How do I become a better secretary? How do I become a better pilot? You name it, race car driver. It's all about self-improvement. And so that's what I wanted to share with you all today. Again, it's some important elements to become an effective leader, and I'll just go over it real quick. Number one, I talked about goal setting, empathy, trust, accountability, motivation, and inspiration. And then I talked about team building and self-improvement. So I talked about 7 different items that can really help you to become a more effective leader. And if you incorporate them into your leadership toolkits, and just like a bodybuilder lifts weights and he has muscle memories, you can have leadership muscle memory. You like that? You can have leadership muscle memories, and it will make you a more effective leader. And remember, you do not have to have the title of leader to be a leader, because we're all leaders. Why? Because we all have a life to live. I'm Paul Lawrence Vann. It was an honor to be with you on Leadership is Influence on this YouTube channel. Thank you so much, and please subscribe to this channel. Also recommend it to your friends, your families, and your colleagues. I'll see you on the next episode of Leadership Influence. Again, my name is Paul Lawrence Vann. If you want to learn more about me, simply go to paullawrencevann.com. Or if you want to go listen to my and take a look at my workshop, leadership development workshops, just go to www.paulvannspeaks.com. Or you can reach me by email at info@paulvannspeaks.com. I'll see you on the very next episode, and have a great day. And it was an honor being in your presence. Have a great day and take good care.